Hey everyone, I hope your day is going super lovely today. So I have a review for you guys. Hopefully this is going to be a short and sweet review for you guys. But it is on this beautiful palette. This is the Serpentina palette from Kat Von D. This is her newest addition to her beauty line and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I do want to first talk about the packaging because the packaging is a little bit different to her other standard palettes. So there's some like beautiful gold lasering, etching, whatever you want to call it, on the side, and it's gorgeous. It's foiled. It's really pretty. Then you have Serpentina and the Ankh, I believe it's called, the Ankh sign. And when you open it up, you have a mirror. And what's so cool about this mirror, it's actually raised. I don't know if you can see that, but it is raised. It just feels so substantial, so legit. It just makes it look, I don't know, so much more gothic in a way, like a nice vintage mirror in your palette. And then you have these beautiful shadows here. They are all super colorful. You have some mattes, some shimmers, and some glitters, and then you have this loose pigment right here. So you can actually pop out the loose pigment, as you can see, which is really cool. So there you have it. You have the Ankh symbol again. Gorgeous. So this palette is actually very different to the other ones. This one is quite thick to her standard palettes. I have a couple of her other palettes as well because I'm a huge fan of Kat Von D, period, and her beauty line is just a bonus. So here are some of her other, like, more standard palettes. This is her Interstellar palette, which is one of my favorites actually. So usually she has her 12 pan palettes, and they come in like little quadrants, like so. So you have 3 shadows up here, and then you have 9 shadows here. So that's usually how her layouts are. I have another one. This one sadly no longer exists. She discontinued this one. But yeah, that's usually how her layouts go. And as you can see, I love her like cool toned palettes. They are some of my favorites. And then she has some newer palettes, and they're little tiny palettes. These are the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Contour Quads, and this is what they look like. So it just comes with 4 shadows, and these are all matte. Even though this palette is quite on the thicker side, I will say that the standard palettes are actually much more heavier. I don't know why that is, but I do notice that the older palettes are much more heavier than this one. This isn't feather light or anything like that, but I do think that pretty much all that you feel is the mirror. The mirror is a little bit on the heavier side, but that's pretty much it. It's actually quite a light palette. So this palette actually retails for $45 on the Sephora website in case you are interested in buying it. And I'm going to read to you what Sephora has to say about this palette. So it says, Serpentina eyeshadow palette captures the opulence and beauty of ancient Egypt with a versatile design unlike any other Kat Von D palette. The configuration features 8 pressed powders in matte and metallic shimmer finishes, plus a removable jar of gold loose pigment for ultimate versatility. This loose pigment is the most beautifulest pigment I've ever seen. I have it in my inner corners right now, and I have actually used this on top of lip products as well, and it is just stunning. I will have, or I already will have it already up, but I do have a tutorial on this palette coming up. So what you see in my eyes is using this palette. So I'm going to get into the colors for you guys. So we have Blood Milk, and Blood Milk is a matte brick red. We have Medusa. Medusa is a bronze shimmer. We have Ankh, which is a matte black with gold glitter. We have Queen, which is a rust glitter. We have Hieroglyph, which is a copper shimmer. We have Nile, which is the ocean blue shimmer. We have Scarab, which is the emerald shimmer. We have Venom, which is a matte Royal Purple. And we have Profit, which is a Fool's Gold Loose Pigment. Okay, so let's talk about the shadows. These shadows, at first glance, they are just stunning right off the bat. They are super bright, super vibrant, and I have to say that I do prefer the metallic colors in this palette. I think that they perform the best. They are super buttery, super pigmented, very easy to blend. They're not chalky whatsoever. I do find with the matte colors though, I do have problems blending them. They're a bit chalky. And they do have a lot of kick up. I do notice with a lot of Kat Von D's matte products in general, they do have a lot of powder kick up. So I'm kind of used to that already. I'm very familiar with her formula, so it doesn't really bother me. You know, but if I would have to compare the metallic shadows to the matte shadows, I definitely would prefer the metallics. I just find that with Kat Von D's products, they are very rich. They are very pigmented. So a little bit always goes a long way with her products. And, you know, this palette is no exception. Please do not be afraid of color because these are just stunning. And if you are someone who just tends to go for neutral looks, you can definitely use these as just a pop of color on your lower lash line. But, I mean, if it's not worth the $45 just to use it as a pop of color, then I totally understand that. But if you are someone who loves color, these are for you. If you love metallics, these are for you as well because the sheen on these and just the quality of the metallics are just amazing. There's only 2 mattes in this palette. The one that I think I don't like the most would be this one, which is Ankh. It's a black with a bunch of like peachy gold shimmer running through it. And I'm just not a fan of those like really dark colors with loads and loads of glitter. Like those just don't gravitate towards me, and I just don't use these sort of colors very often. So it's really just a personal preference. The shadow does work wonderful on the eyes. It's just not a shadow that I would reach for, but every other color, yes. Again, this is a really fun one. I love using this on top of my matte liquid lipsticks. It just really changes the game. It really looks very editorial, very beautiful. So besides the mattes being a little bit chalky, the only other negative thing that I would say about this palette is that there isn't any transitional colors. There is nothing for your brow bone. So I wouldn't consider this a complete palette. Does that really upset me? No, because I knew what I was getting myself into when I purchased this. But for those of you who like a very complete palette, everything in one, then this might upset you. I do have to go ahead and use my transition, colors and my matte brow bone shades. But I have a lot of those in my collection, so it's not really a big deal. Like today, I did go ahead and use my Makeup Geek shadows. I used Peach Smoothie and Creme Brulee as my transition, and it really just helped kind of blend everything and put everything more cohesive. So that's the only thing. I mean, if you want to go ahead and just use all the colors and just create a really awesome colorful look without any transition colors, that's fine too. Everyone can do what they feel is comfortable for them. There is no rules to makeup, but I do just want to make a point that there isn't really anything like that in this palette. So those are really my thoughts on this palette. Let me show you a palette that I have that I think is kind of similar. I'm going to warn you guys really quickly that my daughter completely destroyed this palette. This is actually a newer palette and it's right there. Let me get it. So this palette right here is what I would consider a dupe for the Serpentina palette. Now, yeah, the palette that I have here is kind of destroyed. Like I said, my daughter just completely demolished it. I had it in my beauty room. It was sitting on my table. I forgot to put it away, and she found it and just had a field day with it. So do not be surprised by the mess of this palette. But I was so excited to review this palette for you guys, but it didn't work out. But this is it. This is from Juvia's, and it's the Nubian 2 palette. So that is what it looks like, and I do feel like a lot of the colors in this palette are very similar to the colors in this Serpentina palette, and Kat Von D is cruelty-free, and Juvia is also cruelty-free as well. So I did want to share this palette with you guys. The palette is absolutely gorgeous. Mine looks like a hot mess, but the palette is absolutely gorgeous, and the shadows are just superb. And I do want to show you guys side by side that there are very similar colors. Of course, when it comes to dupes, you guys can totally be the judge of it. You guys can let me know, Sarai, that is not a dupe, girl. That is not a dupe, and that's fine. I will not get offended. But I did want to share it with you guys. Side by side, the colors of both palettes. So you see that there is a electric blue in both palettes. There is a beautiful green in both palettes. There is also a old gold kind of color, or fool's gold kind of color in both palettes. You also have a beautiful orange in both palettes. So there is a lot of similar colors. There's more mattes in the Juvia palette, but for the most part, you can pretty much get the same color scheme with the Juvia palette. So I did want to let you guys know about that. This palette is amazing. If you guys still want to see a review or a look using this palette, I will certainly do that for you. The packaging is beautiful as well. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Serpentina palette. I do really love this palette. I'm just a huge fan of Kat Von D. She could do no wrong, people. She could do no wrong. Yeah, so what is on my eyes is the Serpentina palette, and I love the looks that I create with this palette. They're very fun, and that is what I'm all about. You know, I like keeping it neutral in the daytime from time to time, but sometimes I like the shock factor of just like colorful looks. I love just the art form of makeup, so I'm not scared of color, so you shouldn't be either. So yeah, that is the Serpentina palette for you guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you guys in the next one. Love you guys.